3, 2, 1. How often do you think about the Oscars? About how many Oscar-winning films there are and how many you've seen? Yeah, there's a few famous Oscar-winning films that we've all seen. You know, The Godfather and Lord of the Rings and Titanic. I'm King of the World, all that stuff. But the Oscars have been running since 1927. There are currently over 1,000 films, feature-length films, which have won an Oscar. How many have you seen? I did the numbers for myself. It's not many, and I consider myself quite a movie buff. So here then is the premise of this podcast. Every episode, I and a rotating cast of 2 guests will randomly select one of the 1,000 films that have won an Oscar, watch it, and talk about it, with the only requirement being that one of the 3 people on each episode has to have never seen the movie before we talk about it. That will get difficult with Star Wars. Please note that our coverage of a movie does not constitute an endorsement of it. My least favorite movie of 2016, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, won an Oscar for Best Makeup, while my favorite movie of 2016, The Handmaiden, wasn't even nominated for anything. Please also note that our coverage of a movie is not a blanket endorsement of any or all of the people involved in it. A lot of terrible people have won Oscars. Kevin Spacey won an Oscar 20 years before he was outed as an abuser, and Roman Polanski won one 20 years after. But every film, good, bad, or in many cases mediocre, that has won an Oscar is an important part of film history just for being there. And they all, on some level, deserve a tiny bit of consideration, even if that consideration ends up concluding that it's garbage. And with all of that in mind, I am your host, as always, Ellie McConaughey, and with me today is Jasmine Garcia.
Disney's all, we've created the next Toy Story movie, and the fan base said you ruined a perfectly good trilogy is what you did. Look at it, it's got anxiety.
It always had anxiety.
Yeah, but even more so. I'm sorry, we have suicide now.
The suicide. Okay, we'll get into it. And also Addie Greenberg sued.
I've got the entire plot for Bo Peep Fury Road all lined up. I'm ready to go.
Awesome.
Awesome. And in case you haven't figured it out, we are here today to talk about Toy Story 4, the 2019 film that won Best Animated Feature at the 92nd Academy Awards, and our first ever animated movie to talk about. And I think this was a first time through for all of us, wasn't it?
Yeah, or at least for me.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
It was, yeah.
Wow.
As Justin and I mentioned in the chat, we both kind of, not on purpose, because we hadn't known each other back when this came out, but both of us kind of avoided this on principle.
Well, my impression was that, most people kind of avoided this on principle, but obviously that's not the case. It made over $1 billion. People went to see this fucking movie.
Most people don't care.
So I basically have never watched a Disney or Pixar sequel until about a couple weeks ago. We started actually, it started with, we watched Moana 2, and it was actually good, really good. And so I was like, okay, let's do more. But also, we had already been planning on doing Toy Story 4 for this.
So you've never seen 2 and 3?
I haven't. So I've just seen 1 and 4. So that's where I'm coming from. So you were like, Toy Story's never done this before. And I'm like, I didn't know that. It seems like a great place to have the Steven universe. Let's be friends.
Oh my God, Addie, you need when she loved me in your life, you were gonna weep.
Oh, I have heard the song.
It's so much worse in context.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet.
So I am also, and this is an extremely odd thing to say as someone employed by the Walt Disney Corporation, I have found myself avoiding a lot of Disney stuff, more or less on principle. A lot of the sequels, I didn't go see Moana 2, more or less on principle. I don't go see any of the live action remakes, basically on principle. I don't know if that's people have made arguments for various live action remakes, usually.
Cinderella?
No.
Maleficent?
That's it. Maleficent is important because I am going somewhere with this. Maleficent. And I have seen Maleficent. And like I can see why people would like Maleficent, and it's the same way that like this is kind of an exception to that rule, because like even if it's not my favorite thing, I can see why someone would like Toy Story 4. I can see why someone would like Maleficent. They are not just here is that thing you like again. They do have ideas
Hmm.
they are driving at.
It's actually trying to be about something instead of just trying to satisfy the spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike, we are recording this on the 28th of March. That fucking Snow White remake is out in theaters right now. That movie looks like it's there to satisfy a spreadsheet.
Okay, so my thing about the remakes is that I have been watching some of them.
Okay.
I watched some of them are just like I don't really this didn't add anything, but one of the things that I when I was watching the Beauty and the Beast remake, I actually thought it added some things that were really really nice. So I think that I'm on the side of like remakes are not necessarily bad. It's
Yeah.
when there's nothing new to be said. But with the sequels, my thing was just that I remember when I was a kid and like the Aladdin sequels were so trash. They were just absolute wastes of time.
The direct to video sequels they did.
Yeah, that was that. And so in my head, it was just Disney animation sequels are all just cash grabs and kind of bad.
I mean,
But I really ought to have like adjusted that because I know that a lot of people loved Frozen 2. A lot of people loved, was it Toy Story 3 that was the one that got all of the attention because of the.
but the thing is, Toy Story is kind of a near perfect trilogy
Mm-hmm.
before we factor in 4. Like,
Okay.
2 was kind of the first Disney sequel that was just like, oh, wait, you could actually make the argument it's a superior sequel. I don't know if I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, Jessie is one of my favorite characters, so maybe I could. And then 3 was the one that made every millennial fucking cry. And the thing about this franchise is I'm pretty sure we can pin all of the millennials' neuroses regarding their childhood toys on this entire franchise.
Well, what's interesting about Toy Story in specific is that it's actually kind of responsible. This Toy Story 2 in specific is kind of responsible for the shift in how Pixar worked with
Yeah.
Disney, because Disney was always Pixar's distributor.
Yes.
But Toy Story 2 was originally conceived of as a direct-to-video sequel, which meant that it wouldn't be part of a deal that Disney had already made. And when they moved it to be a theatrical release, they got into a big fight about it. And middle, I'm cutting out a huge amount of context here. Please don't get on my ass, commenters. that is how Disney basically acquired Pixar.
And it was also kind of the first time that we realized, oh wait, no, like Pixar is actually going to make you really, really, really feel things. Like not just if you were a little kid, but like no, there were definitely adults who were feeling things during the "When She Loved Me" sequence.
Well, yeah, that's. I think that for me, like, I think Pixar had already proved that with Up.
Well, keep in mind, I'm talking about like even as early as Toy Story 2, they had done that.
I don't actually remember what the order of things was.
Toy Story 2 was in 1999.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's way earlier than I thought it was.
I was like 8 years old. I got a Jessie doll almost immediately after seeing that movie.
Oh, that's so cute.
And I was very concerned about making sure I never lost her back when I was a little kid, because it's just like, no, she's been through enough.
So like that's sort of like what I find, broadly speaking, and I'm not, we haven't gotten into specifics yet, but like that's what I find kind of like broadly speaking interesting about this one, like not losing your Jessie doll, because you're right, like Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 are kind of a solid trilogy, and I could get real pretentious about them if I wanted to. Someday we'll cover 3 and I'll talk about how the film is a metaphor for various flavors of the afterlife.
Yeah. That's like pretty much all the really good Pixar movies are about mortality in some way.
Right. But like, so this one is at least, I'm going to make a comparison, which I'm sure is going to be a movie that is completely uncontroversial. It's kind of a little bit like Toy Story's Last Jedi.
Ooh.
In that it wants to engage with the mythology and the mechanics and the metaphor of Toy Story, particularly the toys as parent metaphor, which is an extremely loose metaphor across all four movies, and like
Yeah.
ask ourselves, like, okay, but how does that work?
I mean, one of the weird things about being a fan of this franchise as an adult because you grew up with it is just kind of realizing, no, this is all really fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think a lot of millennials feel a weird neurotic have some weird neurotic feelings about their childhood toys as a result of this franchise. Because it's just like, okay, but on the off chance you are sentient, yikes.
You know, I didn't actually get that. Like, I mean, so it didn't screw me up in that way.
Nor I.
But I will say that, like, what you were saying, I just, the use of Wikipedia, I pulled up the list of Pixar films so that I could actually be, you know, could look at the timeline. And yeah, Toy Story is the first movie that
Sure
Pixar
is.
ever released.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
Toy Story 2 was after A Bug's Life, and those are the
Yep.
first three.
Yep.
And like, they don't hit the amount of, like, Toy Story actually moved me. I remember feeling like there are some moments in there where I was really like very emotionally in it. I
Mhm.
don't think they hit me again with that until Ratatouille,
Ratatouille is very good.
which is over a decade later.
I would also argue for Finding Nemo, although Finding Nemo was actually my favorite Pixar movie growing up.
I didn't care for it, but also I don't know. I'm thinking it seems like we're not. It seems like I'm the odd one out here.
No, that's fine.
No, that 1,000% fine.
That's beautiful.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that I did not respond to. This is one of those things where, like, if I wanted to get super pretentious about it, I could say that, like, how you as a kid respond to Finding Nemo is going to vary. It's one of those things where I feel like Finding Nemo, and this is one of the things that I think is both a strength and a weakness of the film. It is more for fathers who worry that they are absent
Yeah.
than it is for kids who are being neglected by their parents,
Yeah, that's super
or
valid.
who are being over loved by their parents. In the other case, like,
Yeah.
it is more, and I'm kind of ambivalent about that. I have a real consistent problem with kids movies
That are really about parents.
that prioritize the feelings of the parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, to be clear, this is an argument that I have a lot, so I'm going to get out ahead of this. There are people out there who get really annoyed at me for calling Pixar movies kids movies. No, they're movies for everyone. No, they're movies for children. They can appeal to everyone, but no movie
Yeah.
that is good is for everyone.
Yeah.
I just 100% agree. I think that's absolutely reasonable. I think one of the ways to make good art is to know your audience. And if
Yeah.
your audience is literally everybody, then you don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Pixar is like one of those studios that can really thread the needle. Like, yes, they are obviously for children, but they do find a way to kind of tap into some really mature emotions too, which is part of what makes them so successful, I feel like.
What makes them so successful is, like, they do tap into mature emotions, but they also do it in ways that I feel like are very accessible
Yeah.
to children,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, like, I have talked a lot about, and not necessarily on here because it doesn't super come up often here, but, like, I've talked a lot about the aversion a lot of adults have to art that challenges them.
Yeah.
And, like, so that's why I think one of the reasons why Pixar is so successful among adults who are averse to art that challenges them, because it does tackle more complicated themes you might expect for a kids movie, but it's not going to be like, it's not going to mess you up about it.
No one's worldview is going to be changed by most Pixar films.
Which, hottest of all possible hot takes, you should go see a movie that messes you up once in a while.
Yeah.
I think that messing you up can take different forms. I will say that, like, when I finally watched Onward, I immediately needed to call my older brother and just tell him how much I loved him.
Aw.
I felt that movie tore me apart, just absolutely destroyed me. Because that feeling of, like, the sibling that took care of you when your parents were either not there, in my case, just too busy.
Mm-hmm.
And my older brother was that for me. And so
Aw.
and I know that a lot of people felt the same way about Frozen with Sisterhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely do watch movies that fuck you up, but I don't think that Pixar doesn't do that sometimes. I think that I also fell apart for Coco just about
Oh yeah.
older, you know, grandparents level kind of things, and like that memory just absolutely destroyed me as well.
No, absolutely.
I was gonna say my kids movie example is a French kids movie from a couple years ago called Petite Maman,
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
which is about a little girl traveling back in time and meeting her mother as a little girl. And like I've seen that movie twice. The current record for how long it takes me to stop crying after seeing it is quickest is half an hour.
Oh, honey.
wow. That's a pretty,
Yeah.
to me, that's really, really high praise.
Yeah, no.
It's great. It's an incredible movie. I miss my mom.
Of
Yeah.
course.
But like, no, I'm speaking specifically about content. Like,
Yeah.
you need to watch a movie for grown-ups, and sometimes those movies are gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
Good.
Hmm.
Go it out sometimes. See a fucked up movie.
I want a ball. I like media that makes me sob.
Movies are supposed to make you feel things. Like, listen, again, I am all about watching stuff that is aimed for younger audiences. That doesn't mean that I also don't find time to watch things that are intended for grown-ups. You need a balance if you are into this sort of thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's it for our show. We talked about a lot. We've only been talking for 15 fucking minutes, y'all.
Yeah, but we also have largely talked around Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
We are talking a little bit around it. We are talking a little bit around the content of the actual film. Partially because I find the content a little slippery.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Like, so like I said earlier that it is the last Jedi of the Toy Story franchise, and I'm gonna go ahead and stand by that.
No, I think you're onto something, honestly.
Can you clarify what you mean?
Well, I'm about. Let's say, like, to be clear, before I get into it with the commenters, I like the Last Jedi a lot, but the Last Jedi is animated by a fairly direct sense of purpose. It has a very specific thing it wants to say. In fact, it's clear enough that it has like it drags Yoda out to say it.
Yep.
Whereas like Toy Story 4 is very much in the same way that is interested in interrogating the mechanics. Like, okay, we have these toys who have left Andy, they've gone to this new kid, but that is an exception for how toys move through the world.
Right.
Most of the time, if you've got this friend group of toys, they are going to be scattered to the four winds piecemeal over 20 years of a kid's life.
Yeah.
And like, how does sentience actually work in this world is a question the movie wants to ask. And how what is the instance of a being that is fundamentally immortal denied from birth in Gabby's case their reason for existing, and like it wants to examine all those things, but they sort of like it doesn't have a single animating focus it wants to aim at.
Hmm.
And I think that causes problems.
Okay, so I'm going to disagree slightly because the
Okay.
animating focus happens as soon as Woody goes to the elementary school, and it is the first and like for the first 10 minutes of his existence, it is the only word that Forky says: trash.
Mm-hmm.
That is the focus. What happens when a toy is trash?
Okay, that's interesting. That is an angle I had not considered.
Yeah, I will say, like, if there's one thing that this movie definitely does right, it's that each of almost every single character represents a different angle of the theme it's trying to go for.
Mm-hmm.
And which is what all good movies should do.
What I found very interesting about and I said this in the chat when we were talking about it, is like, so the other Toy Story villains, Sid from Toy Story 1, I don't remember the name of the prospector guy from Toy Story 2, and
Stinky Pete.
Stinky Pete, thank you, and Lotso from Toy Story 3, they are, in exception to Pixar tradition, villains to be defeated.
Yeah.
Gabby is therefore interesting in that the movie at the end, like, she starts out as someone to be foiled, but by the end she has transitioned into someone to be helped. Because she kind of, and this is good writing, it's basic but it's very good writing, she actually represents the same mindset that Woody has.
Mm-hmm.
And and both of them have to live through that mindset being challenged. You know, they both.
Right.
Woody was so devoted to Andy, and it's also, this is another thing that the movie sort of like, it challenges. It doesn't do it. It doesn't do it heavily, but it does like bring it up. It's one of those sort of like, so Toy Story has a lot of like mechanics that you probably shouldn't think too hard about. Um,
Child logic.
Yes, which is fine. Which, to be clear, is fine with me. I love child logic movies. I love dream logic movies.
Yeah,
I like David Lynch. I do not need everything to make sense. You just got to make me feel it.
for sure.
I like Tenet, and Tenet's whole movie is summed up with "Don't think, just try to feel it."
I just want to interject for a little bit because you mentioned that Gabby makes this shift,
Mm-hmm.
and so does Woody.
Yes.
Woody makes a shift on how he thinks about what is important and what's important to him.
Yeah.
And Gabby doesn't so much make that shift in what's important to her, but she does go from being extremely unambiguously villainous to being far more empathetic a character. And both of those changes are earned, and both of them happen through interactions with Forky.
Yes.
They are changing their minds and their positions about how they feel about being trash.
Mm-hmm.
In both cases, they're unloved dolls. They're unloved toys.
Mm-hmm.
Woody has been in the closet for so many years. I'm gonna blow right past that one because I did have a lot of queer reactions to this movie, but I'm not gonna get into that right now.
No, I kind of did too, but with Gabby specifically, weirdly enough.
There, you can very easily read a transgender allegory into Gabby if you want to.
Wasn't going there, but I see it.
No, like straight up, like Gabby's arc is about thinking she just needs that one last, in this context, surgical fix.
Mhm.
And it's her voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
See, I was just making the Little Mermaid connection, but yeah, you're right.
Well, to compare it to The Little Mermaid, if we go with my other favorite transgender allegory movie,
The lore. Yeah.
In that movie, you know, she trades her legs, her fins, her voice for legs because she wants to have sex with this guy. You know, it's not
It's all connected, man.
You can't keep me from wanting toes, Daddy.
I'm so unhappy I can't talk about the lore on this podcast. I could talk about the lore for literally months.
No, not just for once. You already talked about it on Sam's. You're gonna talk about it on mine eventually.
And I could do it on yours, and I can't do it on Rivers.
No, you cannot call it a rom-com. It is nothing calm about what happens at the end.
Anyway.
Oh, I made the comment that, I just quoted a TikTok and it was like, you can't stop me from liking feet, Daddy.
Jesus Christ.
Ariel is a monster fucker, canonically.
Yeah.
Really? Ariel? Humans, really?
Honestly, both of them are monster fuckers if you go by that.
Mm-hmm.
Addie, what if I told you that one of the major allegories of the film I'm speaking of, The Lure, is that the mermaid, in our metaphor, one of the metaphors, trans woman, having a romantic relationship with a man who only sees her as a sex object is negative. Well, her sister sleeping with a woman who wants her as she is more positive.
That's nice.
And also spines are involved in the sex scene.
Also, there are spines involved in the sex scene.
Well, that's really nice.
Isn't it just?
You should see The Lure.
You should see The Lure. But anyway.
We are so far off topic. Oh my god.
Speaking of, our dear listeners, I just realized technically I could cover this on my podcast since Bo Peep is a major character.
Mm.
Oh, the voice box thing. I want to come back to that because... So, I didn't even think about this, but in retrospect, as soon as you brought up Gabby as a way for trans people to connect, I know it's not like... It's voice is such an important part of how we interface with the world, that when I tried to do vocal training, I had panic attacks the entire, every session. I would just lose it. I would cry tons and tons. And the reason why was because I was being told all of these things about how my voice was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided in the end that it was too hard for me to adjust at that time. And I still haven't gone back, although I don't think I care as much anymore, which is one thing about being confident that helps.
Fuck then.
But as a result of that, I've written horror now where it has to do with like there like as a form of torture, somebody debarks someone else,
Oof.
devocalizes them, cutting their vocal cords so that they can never speak above a whisper again. Because all I do when I'm writing horror is I think about what would fuck me up the most. What would be the most horrible thing that someone could do to me? And then I go and make my villains do that with no remorse.
Yeah, that's good horror writing. That's a good horror writing instinct. And also, Addie, I will fight somebody for you. You know that, right? We will storm the castle for you.
I mean, like,
Aw.
I don't think I'm shocking anyone who has heard me talk on this podcast when I say that, like, I have found that I can't really make a lot of headway with voice training.
Mhm.
Oh,
It's hard,
It's really hard.
and I already like people don't like know this. Like, people who don't know me personally don't usually know this about me, but the voice that I'm speaking in right now is already an affected voice. When I
mhm.
first moved to the lower 48, this is what I sounded like, and well, kids can be mean, so I didn't talk like that anymore. And so, like, it is I do find it extremely interesting, even outside of like the connecting to it as a trans woman of it all, that like there is something kind of like poignant in Gabby feeling like I just need this one little fix,
Yeah.
and the person I want will love me. No, she won't, because that was never your problem, baby girl.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's 100%. I love that.
And like I'm not your direction on the under the trans genderqueer umbrella, but I think a lot of people have always thought, if I could get rid of this one insecurity,
Yeah.
then I'll be accepted and loved. And it's just like, no, that's not always the case. And even if it was the case, is it really worth it? Like, sure, like the fact that she had the voice box back probably did help her find that little girl near the end, but I get the feeling that sad little girl would have loved her even if she hadn't
She
spoken.
didn't even actually use it. She actually didn't. She didn't speak at that point. They had her sit out in front.
Hmm.
I think this is probably on purpose because they almost never do something without purpose. But they rolled a ball into her
Yep,
to catch the girl's attention. She didn't use the voice box to catch the girl's attention.
that is true. She scooped her up before she even heard her talk. So,
Hmm.
yep, thus proving my point. It's like, I guess if you take anything from this particular storyline, listeners, like, someone will love you exactly as you are. Promise. I promise.
The point I was sort of like circling around there is that like Woody's arc is wanting to be useful to
Hmm.
Bonnie, which is actually kind of like a surrogate to wanting to be back with his previous kid, which is Andy, which is
Yeah.
where the thing that the Toy Story movies kind of like they have stated in two, and they state again here, that Woody has been around since the 50s,
Yup.
which is one of those things that they kind of like they can't talk about that too out loud, because then you end up asking like, wait a second, Woody, how have you not had kids before this? How do you not like understand how this shit works? But that again, like, that's one of those things where like I don't need that to make 100% sense. I just need it to make emotional sense, and it does for the most part make emotional sense.
And in
Yeah.
fairness, it does say in Toy Story 2 is that he was an old family toy. So I think the reason he's so attached to Andy is because he has been with this one family since the 50s, probably.
Well, also, he was Andy's favorite, so it may have just
That
been
too.
that he wasn't a kid's favorite until Andy.
That is also possible.
And right, and that's sort of like the thing that the movie ultimately wants to interrogate, which is that like they have used these toys as metaphors for a lot of things. There is the famous like way Toy Story 1 externalized the shift over in pop culture from spaghetti westerns to sci-fi movies.
Which, very fun.
Very, very fun metaphor there. But like, part of the problem that I think Toy Story 4 has with all of that is that all of those metaphors kind of break down when you remember this is a toy. Yes, we have in this story, in this context, in the child dream logic of this story, toys are perfect, precious things that are all passed on as a group, blah 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 blah. That is not how shit actually works.
Nope.
Right.
And to insert the one famous line from the original, of course, "You are a toy."
You are ultimately very disposable. You like I can't remember the last, obviously I moved 3,000 miles when I was 13. I don't have any of my childhood toys anymore. Statement of fact.
Trash?
But like what?
Trash?
Trash. Precisely. You are ultimately destined for the landfill for the most part.
No, I donate. I donate my stuff so that other children can enjoy them, if nothing else.
Right, and that's usually where it's going to end up, and then you can end up either if in the context of the story of the toys, it's a like found family, you end up completely split up, or you end up
Yeah.
like Bo Peep sitting on a shelf for years on end
Yeah.
because I'm not going to get my 5-year-old an extremely fragile porcelain lamp.
Yeah, that's crazy that was what they decided to use to help Molly with being afraid of the dark.
I mean, so the other thing to think about is that, like, we met in Toy Story 1 a whole bunch of toys that had been messed around with by Sid, who is a very inventive and lovely child. But
Sure.
Babyface is not ending up in a consignment shop. That's not what you're doing with those toys, right?
Yeah.
Those are going into a
Yeah.
landfill.
Sad but true.
And like how does like mortality and physicality and death even contextually work in Toy Story? We meet a toy at one point in this movie who has had his entire lower half ripped off, and he seems pretty chill about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It begs some questions, particularly with the incinerator scene in 3.
Right, how does that fucking work? How does sentience, Forky is at his core asking the question, how does toy sentience come about in this context? And I don't think it has a good answer. I also think that's one of those
Why
things.
am I alive?
Yeah. Tony Hill's very good in this.
To quote another Academy Award winning film, so he's wondering what he was made for.
Yeah. And hey, this movie also does have Barbies.
Yeah.
It does have Barbies.
I legitimately think that Toy Story walked so that Barbie could run.
Oh, 100%.
Toy Story 4 does not have a Ryan Gosling led musical number.
Mm-hmm. And therefore it fails.
Therefore, it fails. This is a rigid standard. Most movies fail. So far, it's just this, and I think the Nice Guys have succeeded. I actually don't remember if there was a musical number in that one.
And also La La Land. You forgot the existence of La La Land, Ellie.
La La Land fails for other reasons.
Yes, it does. But anyway. But yeah, let's talk about Bo Peep, because she has been because obviously I talk to a lot of fans of the larger Disney animated canon, or whatever you want to call it, and Bo Peep's kind of transformation from pretty minor character in like the first 2 movies to completely being just nope, we're not even going to try to explain why she's not there in 3, to basically getting co-lead in this was like one of the 2 things that people praised about this movie, alongside Forky, of course.
I love her. I want to be her when I grow up.
She's great. I do like what they had ideas of what to do with her, at least, and I do like what they did with her.
So like Jazz is being. So I know that you haven't seen 2 and 3, Addie. So I will say Jazz is being extremely kind about how the Toy Story movies treated Bo Peep up till this one.
Yeah.
She has like 1 or 2 lines in 2. She is not in 3, and they barely acknowledge that she's gone. They have like 1 line acknowledging that she's gone.
And one really sad face from Woody.
Yeah, that's it. Right. And so like this is one of the things that kind of complicates a lot of discussion about latter day Pixar, which is that, fairly or not, Pixar's proximity to Disney and Disney's focus on the princess brand meant that Pixar kind of got positioned more or less accidentally as the boy movies
Yeah.
to Disney princesses girl movies.
And the one time they tried the Disney princess movie, it didn't do well, even though I saw Brave in the theaters with my mother and cried.
I there are parts of Brave that I like a lot. That is the end of that sentence.
Brave
Valid.
is one of the movies that I rewatch for comfort. I think it's great. I just think that girls who do archery are neat.
Yes. Merida's great.
As someone who has considered getting an arrow tattoo to represent her devotion to Artemis, I agree wholeheartedly. That having been said, I think that Brave, we're not really super talking about Brave, although I don't think it's eligible for this pod, is it?
It is actually. It won the year.
Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk super much about Brave. My only thought about Brave at this point is that Brave is a movie where you can taste its troubled production. Every single character looks like they were dragged from a different movie. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There are parts of it that I like a lot.
I'm not sure you're giving it enough credit, actually.
I haven't seen it in about 10 years, so maybe I will eat all of my words when I next watch it.
I think that there are some Pixar films that really work really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are others that really don't. But I think I would put Brave on the upper half for sure.
I would put it on the upper half. I like it more than most Pixar movies, but now we're getting way too granular with it. I would think I would put Brave on the lower end of the upper half.
I could see that.
So my point was simply that that Pixar wound up for most of the 90s and the 2010s.
Yeah.
Kind of positioning as the little boys movies, and you can see that in the kind of movies they talk about. Toy Story is very much a boys movie. Bug's Life is a retelling of Seven Samurai. The Incredibles, Cars, all robots with Wall-E. Basically 40s adventure serials with Up. I'm ignoring the fact that in Wall-E and Eve are both lesbians. Prove me wrong.
You can't. And also, it focuses so much on the love story with Wall-E, I would think it kind of toes the line.
Wall-E is in the middle.
Hollywood thinks boys are like, all little boys are like the little boy from The Princess Bride, basically.
I think the important thing to note is that 95% of their films are point of view main character is a masculine point of view, even if they're a robot or a toy.
Yep.
Even if they are a robot who is actually a butch lesbian, we understand.
Wall-E is a boy robot.
No, Wall-E is a butch lesbian.
No,
this is
right.
what I'm saying. This is my reclamation. You can't tell me that Wall-E is a boy. Wall-E is a robot. So if you're going to assign a gender to Wall-E, I'm assigning butch lesbian.
A butch lesbian who is very big on looking dapper.
Precisely.
Yeah. But aside from, I think, Turning Red, Inside Out, and Brave, do they have any other female lead characters?
I don't know. I haven't seen Elemental.
Elemental is a love story, so.
Okay. I'm looking over there. I haven't seen The Good Dinosaur either.
The Good Dinosaur is masculine as hell, yeah.
Okay.
They're both boys.
So this is my point. So they, whether intentionally or not, they did embrace that aesthetic. And so I think one of the casualties of that is that they're not always the best about how they treat their lady characters.
Yeah.
Jessie is a major player in Toy Story 2. She kind of doesn't do much in Toy Story 3, and she's basically absent from this movie.
The most she gets is them kind of amping up the romantic tension between her and Buzz in 3.
Yeah, I didn't like that subplot in 3.
She's got a few moments of like she's Bonnie's favored cowpoke.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense.
Which makes a lot of sense. I feel that. Like, I was not really a big fan of playing with all of the my older brother had a Barbie growing up. I did not. I had action figures. And so I wound up with I did these oh my God. I had this soap opera where Batman and Robin lived together and they were definitely a gay couple. And then Robin got Robin had a leg torn off, and so he was mad about that because Batman made it happen somehow, and so he was outside and they had fallen apart, and now he just wanted revenge on Batman. And so it was this whole, like, you expected at some point for Bats to look at the camera and go, "Ay Dios mío."
I love that.
That was what I was going for.
Addie, A, I love you with all my heart and soul. B, are you suggesting that you and I both had an experience where we were given extremely strongly gendered toys growing up and chafed against them?
And
Maybe.
Addie A, you were the prophecy that Dr. Frederick Wertham had foretold when he wrote The Seduction of the Innocent. Good job. And B, you know what? Your little soap opera kind of brings me to my hot take when it comes to the Toy Story franchise. It should have been, if they were going to continue it after 3, they should have made it an anthology series. Let's look at some new toy playrooms. Let's look at how some other kids play.
I mean, they're planning a Toy Story 5, so I don't know what they're gonna do.
Like, the writers of these movies keep on trying to end it, and Disney keeps on telling them no.
Toy Story 4 is a fast, even more than 3. Like 3, I can see the next step because, you know, they are all together with a new kid. Toy Story 4 ending with Woody and Bo Peep leaving together to go live their. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of how to explain how they code Bo Peep's lost toy lifestyle. Like, it's halfway between, like, post-apocalyptic Mad Max kind of stuff and, like, also kind of like city underground in a cyberpunk movie. Like, they have the lost toy rave scene.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got her little, like, the skunk works is what I've been calling the RC that is skunk shaped car. But, like, she's got all of these tools and stuff to fix up toys that have been damaged and stuff. She's got her own little crew.
Yeah, why wasn't the movie just about her?
Well, so here's the thing about what could happen in Toy Story 5. You've now split the group, which means you can let go of some of these very expensive actors to focus on a smaller crew. You can either let go of Tim Allen if you want to stay with Buzz and Friends, or you can let go of... No, that was the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of why.
Right. I'm almost certain it is.
Why would you want to get rid of Tim Allen? Where else are you going to find a guy who sold out all his friends when he got arrested for flying with cocaine?
Man.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, if you were going to make a Toy Story 5, I think the smartest thing that you could do... Oh, never mind. Both Tom Hanks and Tim Allen are signed up for Toy Story 5.
What?
Well, great.
How does that work at this point?
That's sort of the thing. Like, Pixar, and I'm going to say this extremely strongly with the other announced Pixar sequel upcoming, which is Coco 2.
Yeah.
How?
I know.
Precisely.
That's the same reaction I had.
Pixar is slamming headlong into a question that has plagued big budget franchise making for decades, which is how do you write a definitive ending that Hollywood, how do you get a horse so dead that Hollywood won't try to beat it? And so far the only person who's really managed it, in my opinion, is Chris Nolan with the Dark Knight trilogy, because he made the Dark Knight trilogy so much about his personal brand, and every time they tried to get him to come back, he's basically gone fuck off.
And he can say fuck off, and good for him, honestly.
And Chris Nolan is one of the few people in Hollywood with the kind of personal clout to be able to tell people like that, fuck off. Like, maybe him and Spielberg, and even Spielberg, like, they keep doing those Jurassic Park movies because he's got his dad and we're alone in an uncaring universe.
I think that one of the things, though, is that, like, I've always felt that sequels are not a problem unless the
motivation behind them.
Well, it's not even that. I think that there is no story that ends its universe. And so you can always tell more stories in a universe unless you haven't described the universe at all. And then there's your starting point for your next movie, right? Like your next story. There's no.
We're doing the Melancholia extended universe.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, okay. What I mean by this is that, like, you can have a completely self contained tale, and where it ends, that's great. That story might be over, but that doesn't mean that there can't be more stories that are separately enjoyable.
Mhm. Hell, rom-com novels have been doing this for years now.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I think that, like, when you look at actually, Star Wars is a great example where when you look at the nonology, I don't know how you say that. Is that what was that right?
I think people just call it the saga.
The Skywalker saga.
The 9 movies in the center of the
The
universe.
9 movies, about 4 good ones.
You've got 9 movies, and 2 of them are good.
Eddie's even harsher than me.
Damn.
I am, because I cut out Return of the Jedi because of the Ewoks. It's the start of where George Lucas stopped having people tell him no, and
Hmm.
people stopped being able to save his movies in the edit.
Well, that's sort of like the point I was kind of like circling around when it came to sequels. Like, yeah, you can always tell a new story in in that franchise, but like then you slam headlong into Hollywood's desire to use Star Wars as our example, and to use another movie that was nominated for Oscars this year at the 92nd Academy Awards.
Mhm.
You can have a movie that grabs its franchise by the throat and goes, we have killed off your main villain, we have altered the dynamic between the hero and the villain, you have to make something new. And then you have Rise of Skywalker
Right.
look down and say, no.
No.
Yeah.
But I will say that, like, so that's what happens when you have a movie created by people who are not being creative with the source material. Like, I think that when you go into the end trilogy, 7, 8, and 9, you have this whole new crew coming at it, and they didn't have a plan. George always said he had 9 movies in his mind, but he never told them what to do, so I don't believe
Hey,
him.
George didn't have a plan.
I don't believe him.
He has talked inconsistently about his plans for 7, 8, and 9.
Since the 70s.
The most recent version he said of it, and I cannot overstate to you how serious I am being about this being the description he gave. As best I can tell, 7, 8, and 9 in his mind were going to be about the midichlorians.
Oh
Oh my
God.
god. I'm
No.
so glad he's not in charge of Star Wars anymore.
Maybe, and like there are problems I have with George Lucas, both as a franchise manager and as a director.
Yeah.
I think he should have never made $1 billion.
I mean, no one should make $1 billion. We know this, but
To kind of finish off my point here
Sorry.
is that when Star Wars starts, you have a person who has a really clear idea of what the universe should look like, and he's able to communicate that to a huge team of people who made it feel lived in and wondrous, and they perfected it for Empire, and then finished it off for. I kind of blame the chasing after toys for the reasons, the failings that I see in Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But then 1, 2, and 3, those were the cash grab. Lucas was tired. The stories are slow and plodding in a lot of ways. Their pacing is wildly off. There are moments that are brilliant, and then there are moments where you're just like, this could have been condensed into a 2-sentence overview, and then we could get on with the fun. And the fun is where the characters are bouncing off of each other.
This dialogue scene could have been an email.
Right. Yes. But fundamentally, I think my point is that to jump fandoms again, so when you have a Marvel movie that is made by someone who doesn't really care about the source material, you get Thor 1. When you have a Marvel movie that is made by someone who absolutely loves the source material and wants to do whatever they feel like with it, you get Deadpool. And so it's about that love and creativity. And if you can find that and it has to be the entire production team. But once you have a production team that loves the source material, loves the characters, loves the universe, and decides to tell a story in it, then you can have magic happen again. Absolutely, I believe that.
Well, yeah, and Addie, like, on one hand, I do 100% agree with you. Like, sequels and franchises aren't the problem. The problem is that we're stuck with with a bunch of suits in Hollywood whose places in the office, not the arts, to quote the Phantom of the Opera. I should not have to be able to quote the Phantom of the Opera in a way that shows that he's right.
I mean, like, the other problem is that, like, Star Wars is very much, to use our example, Star Wars is very much the product of the specific fixations and ideas that George Lucas had in 1977.
Yeah.
And, like, I actually think that, like, the over focus on keeping it true to Lucas's vision is kind of starting to weigh it down at points, especially since I mean, he bases a lot of it off Hero with a Thousand Faces. Anyone besides me ever actually read Hero with a Thousand Faces?
No,
Nope.
but I do know that's come into some criticism recently because Mr. Campbell kind of flattened out a whole lot of other cultures that he probably had no business writing about.
There's there's a video that I recommend to a lot of people. It's from a YouTuber I really love named Noah Caldwell Gervais. And in his video about Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, he basically lays down the entire run of the Hero with a Thousand Faces and its connection to Star Wars. And he does an extremely thorough job. And, like, not for nothing, man, there's a bit where he talks about the Hero with a Thousand Faces, the book, relationship with women. And one of my favorite quotes from it is, Campbell goes on, although I wish he wouldn't. Because, like, turns out Joseph Campbell had some weird fucking thoughts on women, man.
What? No.
So, like, I think, but, like, that's part of what gives Star Wars its flavor. It is the fixations of a dude, Mr. Lucas, who has some occasionally extremely weird relationships with women. Yes, I am looking at you, Attack of the Clones.
Listen, Lucas, I don't think Lucas thinks too hard about the implications of anything he does.
She died of a broken heart.
He
Are
just
you
rules
kidding
the pools
me?
too hard.
She just delivered twins. There's so many ways she could have died, and you chose broken heart?
She had just had twins, and she was planting the seeds of what would become the rebellion. Like, she should have died fighting the Empire with the babies on her back.
Also, not for nothing, her husband did in fact just choke her out. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
people
Well, yeah.
forget that. You could bring that up, movie.
And also, the whole Palpatine probably drained her life force.
Yeah, but the doctor robot said she died of a broken heart.
You're a bad robot.
My point is that, like, you using Toy Story as our example, the original Toy Story is an extremely self-contained movie. It is about
really is.
one very specific thing, in this case kind of like surrogate fatherhood. You can use either Buzz or Woody as kind of like a metaphor for a new step parent, basically, or just like a replacement figure in your child's life. But as the franchise goes on and each time they add on to it, the metaphor gets weirder. The Toy Story 2 is a little bit about the premise that the toys can, like, outlive their usefulness. Toy Story 3 is more or less explicitly about the end of a toy's life cycle and various different looks at, like, the afterlife of toys. There is a fairly straightforward look at purgatory, at heaven, at hell, at least in a toy context. And so, like, I think that part of the problem is always going to be that, like, Toy Story is a movie that has some weird fucking mechanics. And I know that there are people who are extremely weird about this movie's mechanics. Prior to watching this movie, the only exposure I'd had to Toy Story 4 was like Big Joel did a bonus video where he watched some guy rant about Toy Story 4 second by second for hours on end and like made fun of it. I'm like, this person needs some fucking help.
Jeez.
So like I know that like worrying about the mechanics of how toys function in their metaphor is like missing the forest for the trees, but the movie is overburdened with thoughts on its own mechanics.
I actually, I disagree again. I think the way I'm looking at it is very different from you because you're looking at it as the mechanics of how does a toy, what does it mean to be animated in this particular way. But I think that when you talk about like the overriding metaphor of the first one is from the perspective of this toy, your kid has a new toy, so this is a relationship changer and you have to navigate that.
Mm.
That's what it's about. It's that social interaction. The
Which is
second
fair.
one and third one are about these what happens when things like the third one anyway. I don't know anything about the second one, but I know that the third one has this afterlife, like what happens when we die. The fourth one
Mhm.
is about what happens when relationships end.
Yeah.
What happens after a breakup? What do you do? How do you move on? Is there life after love?
Well, like I said, 2 also very much tackles that through Jesse.
But what I'm saying is that the metaphor is not the same. It's not approaching the
Right.
same topic in each movie. So if you're trying to expect that another Toy Story is going to treat Woody and Buzz like surrogate parents of their kid,
Mm,
that's just not how it happens because
yeah.
it's not the same relationship that they want to go dig into.
I'm just saying, like the my point was actually that the interaction, the real world way toys are treated, sort of complicates metaphors a lot because it's always inevitably going to be a one sided relationship that the toy has no real agency over,
Hmm.
and like I think this movie more than any other is concerned with that fact because like this is the movie I feel where toys are exerting the most agency over their relationships. You know, Woody is extremely desperate to make himself useful to Bonnie, so he does things.
And you can't make someone like you.
Mm-hmm.
And Bo's whole thing is that, listen, I was given up on, and it sucked feeling exactly like you do, and so I came up with a new way of going on with my life, and good for her. It's working well for her. And really, how I'm approaching this movie is, again, it's just how it fits in with the rest of the franchise. And I guess a part of me is just like, there's just something about the fact that after everything, Woody does end up leaving all his friends behind that just sits wrong with me.
I like it because they're parting in friendship,
They are.
but it is sort of this phase of my life has ended. My usefulness to this kid is never going to be the same as I want. And so I can just sit here and be unhappy,
Yeah.
or I can go seek something new.
Mm,
And I think that's important because you cannot change how other people feel about you. You can't like just keep on poking at them and they'll just love you someday. That's not how it works. You have to find love for yourself and then you will find the people who love you back.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I logically know that. It's just,
It can sit wrong with you because of the context of the larger franchise. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that that's a pretty. I think it is a reasonably well put together metaphor. Especially, I really do like the way in which it visually reminds you that Woody had the opportunity to leave with Bo at the beginning of the movie, and the whole
Mhm.
movie is essentially about getting him to the point where he's ready to get in the box, where he's ready to go
Yeah.
with Bo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is, I think, again, within the context of a kids movie, it's not going to be that complicated. I think that's good. I think that works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we're all skipping around much more important theme of the film, which is that dummies are fucking creepy.
Yeah, they are. My God.
Ventriloquist dummies are fucking creepy.
Yeah, Slappy from Goosebumps gets like 4 cameos in this movie.
God, that fucking thing. I had goosebumps when I was like 5.
Nope. No. Never. Ew. God, I would die.
The haunted mask traumatized little 4-year-old me.
No, I would pick it up and burn it. I would turn into Sid over that thing.
That's valid.
That's absolutely valid. No, I think that there's a lot about the film that does really work for me.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff that, like, it's fun. I like Kaboom a lot as a character.
Keanu.
I like anything Keanu does ever.
And they even sneaked in a whoa.
They snuck in a whoa.
His voice will never not make me a little bit just like super excited. Like
Aw.
I can't not. I love that man.
He's great.
But yeah, I feel like I have done the thing that I wanted to do, which is make turn you guys around and make you be kind to this movie, because
I was never going to be mean to this movie because I did. This was my first time, and I did end up quite liking it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, yeah, deep down, I'm always going to be kind of like, but you know that it's only as good as it is because they took an assignment that they really probably didn't want. Because again, like 3 feels like a very good definitive ending, and we could have moved on to other things.
I was always kind of like, I'm not going to say that I'm a full-on contrarian, but like when people get mad at something, there is a part of me that instantly wants to try to see the value in it. And I've said on this pod before, and I will say it as many times as I need to, it is infinite. I don't think that I have ever, or very rarely have I ever come out of a movie and thought, that was a waste of my time.
Yeah, no.
I should not have seen that movie. Every movie I see is valuable. And I liked this one more than I thought I was going to.
Same.
I think the last time I was here, I came, and it's the first time I'd ever watched a movie and gone, "This was a waste of my time. How dare you?"
Ooh.
And that was Let It Be.
That movie does not even come close to qualifying for my, like, should not have seen that movie. No, like, and there is something about it, and I understand that people were upset, and, like, there is the, how do I put this? I think it's a quote from Discworld that, like, stories only end happily because you know where to stop them.
Yep.
Actually, no, I actually remembered where that's from. It's not from a Terry Pratchett book. Speaking of someone whose story, if he stopped earlier, would have been happier, I think it's from a Neil Gaiman book. I think it's from Sandman.
Oh, you might be right. Oh God. Is it am I out of line in saying the wrong Good Omens author died?
No. So, like, stories only end happily if you know where to stop them. Like, every movie, the main character of that movie is going to die someday, except I guess the man from Earth. So, like, knowing where to call it is, and that's more my worry about Toy Story 5 more than anything. I actually think that challenging the a toy must always be there for their kid element, ending on a note that challenges that reaffirms, like, yes, this is still a good relationship, but also, like, sometimes you got to let it go and live for yourself. That's a reasonable ending. I don't know where they could possibly take it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that I don't. So I really like Toy Story 4. I didn't watch 2 and 3, but I think that if I had, I would have probably felt like you do, that the story was over. But I felt that the story was over at 1.
Mm,
I would not have guessed that 2 would have been good.
it is quite good.
And similarly, after 2, I probably would not have guessed that 3 was going to be quite so impactful to so many people.
Mm.
And at 3, I probably would not have seen 4 as a very likely contender, but I really, really love this movie. So at 4, I'm going to say I don't see 5 being good, but I'm willing to be surprised.
Yeah.
We haven't covered any movies from this year at the Oscars yet, but, like, I've said it a dozen times at this point. When Wicked came out, I was sitting there prepped to hate it. you know.
Because she didn't trust me, I guess.
No, before you saw it,
Okay.
you even saw it,
Okay,
when it
fair
was
enough.
like, when I know, okay, it's coming out, it's from a director who's never made a movie I like. They cut the story in half. They hired a pop star, and yes, I know that Ariana Grande is a theater kid first. That's not the point. I was just, it had all the signs. It had all the signs. I loved Wicked.
Yeah.
I loved it a lot. So like I am always, no matter what I go into a movie, what pre biases I have going into a movie, I am always ready to be surprised. And I think that one of the reasons why I like doing this pod is I'm also always willing to hear opinions contrary to mine, because I think
Yeah.
that that's interesting. I think your perspective is very interesting, and I think we need to boycott this movie because it has a trans allegory and get.
Oh, God. Shit.
Apparently, this movie did actually have a boycott attempted on it because one of the kids at the kindergarten has two moms. Enjoy that
Uh,
information. Enjoy it. Have it.
uh,
That's my gift from me to you.
you know, Forky just was born thinking he was trash. I feel like people like that need to have that feeling more. This is further proof all the wrong people have anxiety.
I mean,
You
that's
know,
me. Trash.
me too.
But I'm really cute while I do it.
Not me.
I'm extremely cute trash.
Yeah, no, Forky is a mood.
Forky is a mood. I like Forky a lot. I like the movie a lot.
Mhm.
With that said, I won't let either of you throw yourselves away. Boom.
Aw.
That was a good song too. Like,
Yeah.
It was.
so really well placed. Like it felt. Yeah, it was good. I like it.
It was nominated for Best Original Song. It lost to I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man,
Mm.
which I will say I was kind of hoping Into the Unknown from Frozen 2 won, because then Aurora would be an Oscar winner, but no, I don't get things I
I'm
like.
sorry.
Mm.
I mean, 2019 was a reasonably good year at the Oscars. That was the Parasite year.
Yeah, true.
God, I can't wait to talk about Parasite. Speaking of movies that fucked me up,
But yeah, wild that Pixar's first suicide montage ended up being in a pretty decent movie.
that is what it is, right? Like I'm not
No,
being facetious when I call it that.
it's basically a suicide montage. Woody and Buzz have put Forky on suicide watch.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, did you not get that metaphor?
No, so I see what you're saying. It's not that I don't get the metaphor. It's just not played to be read that way.
I mean, fair. It's just, it's hard not to read it that way from an adult perspective, especially from one who's attempted.
I have two.
Me too.
Yeah.
Two for me.
I
Yeah.
just I think that it's oblique enough that I
Yeah.
don't think that it felt harmful to me in any way.
Oh, no, I don't think it's harmful at all. It's just, like, I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm just saying that as a statement of fact.
It's not intended as a suicide to be clear, I don't think it's intended as a suicide montage. You could more argue it's a self-harm montage. I think it's actually mostly intended as a keep this guy on the clock metaphor,
Yeah.
which does that make Woody a union buster?
That seems about right. I feel like Woody, especially movie one, Woody would have definitely been a union buster.
I mean, okay, Pixar does love cops.
Pixar does love cops.
Woody is a cop, and we got another cop in this movie as Bo's little bestie there, who almost got eaten by a cat. There's so much about this movie we have not talked about.
We got cops on Onward also.
We didn't even talk about the other Oscar winner in this cast. Jordan Peele is in this movie along with Keegan Michael Key.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this was probably like the last gasps of their partnership.
That's how you can tell that there are jokes in this movie for adults, because like, man, what kid is gonna get a Key and Peele reference?
True.
I mean, okay.
Kaiju plushes though.
Yes, I wanted that to be real so bad. I was sitting there going, "Oh, we're going in a brand new direction."
We need kaiju plush movies.
He was, to be clear, at this point already an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
From Get Out.
But in fairness, animation takes a long time. They probably recorded that like 4 years prior.
I don't think the two of them are not like.
Oh, they're on fine terms.
Like,
Oh yeah.
They'll be occasionally together in stuff forever, I think.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
They seem like a Matt Damon and
Ben
oh my
Affleck.
god, Ben Affleck kind of duo, where they're not exactly a package deal. They're both really, really talented and wonderful people, but occasionally you'll just see them working together because they like it.
They together have my single favorite moment in any Kevin Smith movie. Unfortunately, I don't know what it is, but like Ben Affleck was great in those Kevin Smith movies, even though I don't like most of them.
I need to rewatch Dogma.
I'm sorry, we can watch Dogma
We
now.
can do it, yeah. It's all good.
It's all good. It's all good in the hood. Yeah, I think you're right. I've never heard any indication that they were like on the out. Supposedly, Toy Story 4 started production in 2010, like right after Toy Story 3 came out.
Wow.
Which I don't know. That feels very odd to me. It feels like this is not an insult. It feels like a movie that was greenlit like 3 or 4 years later when someone went, "Hey, what's up with that? Let's see what we can do with it."
Well, oh no, I was gonna make a Muppets Most Wanted joke with while they wait for Tom Hanks to make Toy Story 4.
I mean, that's sort of like the thing I was sort of driving at earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I don't do or don't like about the movie, Toy Story 4 is a movie with dignity. It is a
Mm-hmm.
movie that has an idea. It does not feel like a cash grab sequel.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful looking
Mm-hmm.
movie. Animation is incredible. Shame they've still got Tim Allen in these movies, huh?
Yeah.
They should have just gotten Chris Evans for this one instead of making Lightyear.
I was just saying that Toy Story 5 is for next year, so it feels like they must have done the exact same thing where right after Toy Story was finished, Toy Story 4 was finished, they jumped right into the works on 5.
Huh.
Quite possibly. I mean, we'll see how Toy Story 5 is. I hope it's good. I'm gonna go ahead and say this thing where they said where they're gonna deal with the internet. I'm just like grabbing them by the throat. I'm like, no, you are not.
Don't do that to them. They do fucked up things with toys on the internet.
Oh no. That's not gonna be. I don't like that. I don't like that idea at all.
No, neither do
I'm
I.
scared.
And like, I think that one of the I don't want to be mean about this because it's not like intended to be mean, but it is kind of a mean thing to say. You never see a movie more embarrassing than kids these days with their new whatever movies.
I mean, okay, Ralph Breaks the Internet was not that bad, but I mean, I actually really like that movie a lot. But
I like the princesses
what
in it.
I'm thinking about is if they position a Toy Story movie now that Disney and Pixar are like the same company, if they do toys plus the internet, it's going to turn into Disney. What is that thing? Disney Heroes?
Disney Infinity?
Disney Infinity. And
Oh
I
god.
really don't want a 2-hour commercial for a defunct toy line to be number 5 in this series.
Hmm.
Oh, that was Christina Hendricks' Gabby Gabby.
Oh, that's great.
I thought I recognized. It's got a great voice cast too.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh, yeah, no, that actually makes a lot of sense now that I've read it. It's like, oh.
Okay, so Wreck-It Ralph did not win Best Animated Feature,
No.
so I don't really ever need to talk about it on here. So I am simply going to say that Wreck-It Ralph and its sequel are both movies.
You
Dang.
didn't like them?
I don't like either of them. I'm not going to elaborate.
You're a monster. And here I thought I had a crush on you.
Oh.
You can still have a crush on me. You can just like consider me like a villain.
Yeah.
You know?
All
Villain
right, that's
crush.
You can tip my chin up with a sword.
I do have a sword. On that note, Addie, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I will be joining a campaign with the Tipsy Tiger on Twitch, which is Hell Whalers. And I will be playing a sinner who has been sent to hell because she deserves it. And we're going to be hunting a giant Leviathan to hopefully earn our redemption. You can also catch me playing TTRPGs with Faye Umbria, also on Twitch. And then I'm around the internet.
Jasmine?
And I am the host of A Neat Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new, and technically this movie counts for that, which was not on my bingo card at all. You can find us wherever pods are cast, and you can find me at Favorite Vieira on all the socials.
As always, you can find me, Ellie, on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos with dashes between the words. You can find me on Blue Sky, Medium, and Letterboxd at LSR42. And you can find this podcast on Blue Sky at Biggest Night Pod. We are available on both Spotify and YouTube. And if you follow us on YouTube, be sure to give us a subscribe, maybe like and comment on the videos so that you can tell me which parts you like and which parts you don't. And that's it for our episode on Toy Story 4. But I have a consistent bugbear with the animated feature award being the Disney Pixar award. Like, it's a consistent frustration of mine. It has been changing in recent years, I will give it that.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that's more due to a dip in quality than awarding other stuff, but never mind.
Yeah, Disney, you good lately? You good?
They hired me. They cannot possibly be good.
No,
Stop it.
You're like
Stop
the
being my
best
friend.
part of Disney.
Oh,
I'm not gonna stop. It's gonna keep happening.
I like it.
Flirt.
We will flirt off audio. Next time, we will be talking about another animated film that was not made by Disney Pixar. We are going to be talking about Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Hope to see you there.